is we've watched this video. Let me know if you need to see it again. The writer Edgar Allan Poe has created many monsters throughout his writing career. However, there is one monster that stands out more than the others. What is one thing that we learned from the video? One thing we learned from the video about Edgar Allan Poe, if you need to watch it again, it is of course linked here. And you just write your answer right there. I'm going to give you a minute, and then I'm going to read the telltale heart to you. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video, pause the share, ask me any questions. All right, so you've already written something about this. I hope. If you haven't, it's okay. Is there a way I can support you, Sammy, in logging in? You should be able to log in with just your South Brooklyn email, my South Brooklyn email. It should be pretty easy, but if it's not, let me know and we can troubleshoot it, okay? The next thing that we want to do is read this story. It's not that long, and I'm going to read it to you. I'll try and do it as dramatically and fun as I can. Forgot your password. Okay. We're going to need to get you to Dennis as fast as you can for that. So let me see if I have his number. I'll text him and he will change it right now. Okay. By the way, did you guys see that your emails, daily emails that come through now have office hours for Jonathan and Dennis and various other staff members, but Jonathan and Dennis are the two you probably need the most. Dennis McNeil can help you with anything computer related, and Jonathan can tell you about your credits and how far you are from graduation. Yeah, if you can get in your school Gmail, though, you should be able to get into this, the document there. I will share it with you, however, right now, but you'll make a copy of it, okay? But if you should be able to get in there. All right, I'm going to keep going. I'll read the story, and you can catch up and answer those questions easily at a different time whenever you need to. All right, so The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. I was just telling my daughter about this story. I told her it was too scary for me to read it to her, but I told her about it because we were talking about monsters and stuff. All right, The Telltale Heart. It's true. Yes, I have been ill, very ill, but why do you say that I have lost control of my mind? Why do you say that I am mad? Can you not see that I have full control of my mind? Is it not clear that I am not mad? Indeed, the illness only made my mind, feelings, my senses stronger, more powerful. My sense of hearing especially became more powerful. I could hear sounds I have never heard before. I heard sounds from heaven, and I heard sounds from hell. Ooh, it's a good intro. Freaks you out, makes you like wonder what's up with this guy. Listen, and I will tell you how it happened. You will see and you will hear how healthy my mind is. It is impossible to say how the first idea entered my head. There was no reason for what I did. I did not hate the old man. I even loved him. He had never hurt me. I did not want his money. I think it was his eye. His eye was like the eye of a vulture, the eye of one of those terrible birds that watch and wait while an animal dies and then fall upon the dead body and pull it to pieces to eat it. When the old man looked at me with his vulture eye, a cold feeling went up and down my back. Even my blood became cold. And so I finally decided I had to kill the old man and close that eye forever. So you think that I'm mad. A madman cannot plan, but you should have seen me. During all of that week, I was as friendly to the old man as I could be, and warm and loving. Every night about 12 o'clock, I slowly opened his door And when the door was opened wide enough, I put my hand in and then my head. In my hand, I held a light covered over with a cloth so that no light showed, and I stood there quietly. Then, carefully, I lifted the cloth just a little so that a single, thin, small light fell across that eye. For 7 nights I did this, 7 long nights, every night at midnight. Always the eye was closed, so it was impossible for me to do the work. For it was not the old man I felt I had to kill. It was the eye, his evil eye. And every morning I went to his room, and with a warm, friendly voice, I asked how he had slept. He could not guess that every night, just at 12, I looked in at him as he slept. The 8th night, I was more than usually careful as I opened the door. The hands of a clock move more quickly than did my hand. Never before had I felt so strongly my own power. I was now sure of success. The old man was lying there, not dreaming that I was at his door. Suddenly, he moved in his bed. You may think I became afraid, but no. The darkness in his room was thick and black. I knew he could not see the opening of the door. I continued to push the door slowly, softly. I put in my head. I put in my hand with the covered light. Suddenly, the old man sat straight up in bed and cried, "Who's there?" I stood quite still. For a whole hour I did not move, nor did I hear him lie down again in his bed. He just sat there, listening. Then I heard a sound, a low cry of fear which escaped from the old man. Now I knew that he was sitting up in his bed filled with fear. I knew that he knew that I was there. He did not see me there. He could not hear me there. He felt me there. Now he knew that death was standing there. Slowly, little by little, I lifted the cloth until a small, small light escaped from under it to fall upon that vulture eye. It was open, wide, wide open, and my anger increased as it looked straight at me. I could not see the old man's face, only that eye, that hard blue eye, and the blood in my body became like ice. Have I not told you that my hearing had become unusually strong? Now I could hear a quick, low, soft sound like the sound of a clock heard through the wall. It was the beating of the old man's heart. I tried to stand quietly, but the sound grew louder. The old man's fear must have been great indeed. And as the sound grew louder, my anger became greater and more painful. But it was more than anger. In the quiet night, in the dark silence of the bedroom, my anger became fear. For the heart was beating so loudly that I was sure someone must hear. The time had come. I rushed into the room, crying, "Die! Die!" The old man gave a loud cry of fear as I fell upon him and held the bed covers tightly over his head. Still, his heart was beating, but I smiled as I felt that success was near. For many minutes that heart continued to beat, but at last the beating stopped. The old man was dead. I took away the bed covers and held my ear over his heart. There was no sound. Yes, he was dead, dead as a stone. His eye would trouble me no more. So I am mad, you say? You should have seen how careful I was to put the body where no one could find it. First, I cut off the head, then the arms and the legs. I was careful not to let a single drop of blood fall on the floor. I pulled up 3 of the boards that formed the floor and put the pieces of the body there. Then I put the boards down again carefully, so carefully that no human eye could see that they had been moved. As I finished this work, I heard that someone was at the door. It was now 4 o'clock in the morning, but still dark. I had no fear, however, as I went down to open the door. 3 men were at the door, 3 officers of the police. One of the neighbors had heard the old man's cry and had called the police. These 3 had come to ask questions and to search the house. I asked the policeman to come in. The cry, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I said, was away. He had gone to visit a friend in the country. I took them through the whole house, telling them to search it all, to search well. I led them finally into the old man's bedroom. As if playing a game with them, I asked them to sit down and talk for a while. My easy, quiet manner made the policemen believe my story. So they sat talking with me in a friendly way. But although I answered them in the same way, I soon wished that they would go. My head hurt, and there was a strange sound in my ears. I talked more and faster. The sound became clearer, and still they sat and talked. Suddenly, I knew that the sound was not in my ears. It was not just inside my head. At that moment, I must have become quite white. I talked still faster and louder, and the sound too became louder. It was a quick, low, soft sound, like the sound of a clock heard through the wall, a sound I knew well. Louder it became and louder. Why did the men not go? Louder, louder. I stood up and walked quickly around the room. I pushed my chair across the floor to make more noise to cover that terrible sound. I talked even louder, and still the men sat and talked and smiled. Was it possible they could not hear? No, they heard. I was certain of it. They knew. Now it was they who were playing a game with me. I was suffering more than I could bear from their smiles and from that sound. Louder, louder, louder. Suddenly I could bear it no longer. I pointed at the boards and cried, "Yes, yes, I killed him. Pull up the boards and you shall see it. I killed him. But why does his heart not stop beating? Why does it not stop?" Sorry, I get into it. I love that story. Such a good story. All right, your job, and you can tell me in the chat, you can tell me out loud with your voice, what do you think is the scariest monster of all, based on that story? What is the scariest monster of all? I'm going to give you a minute to think. All right. So your job is to come up with what you think is going on. What's the monster? What do we call it? What is the scariest monster of all? A monster inside the human soul, right? That's what we're going to be defining in our work. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to see if anybody's got anything to say. Okay, I'm going to repeat that because that wasn't recorded. But yeah, Sebastian's saying that the human mind is the scariest monster of all. And I think I agree. I think that's what Poe is trying to tell us here, right? It's that, like, especially keeping it so anonymous when we don't know who he is or what their relationship is or what the real motive is. He just says it's this eye looking at him that he feels judged by, right? Ooh, there's that idea, right? He feels judged by this guy. And maybe it's that piece of us that feels judged, that feels criticized, that feels like we have to be perfect and like we want to make others see us as perfect. And that's the capacity, right? That you could be a murderer. Anyone could, couldn't they? Oh, yeah. Yeah. The human mind, we have the capacity for this great violence. We have capacity for great love, but we have capacity for great violence as well. We ourselves can be monstrous.